In the shadow of the Appalachians, one family's children were born perfect. But perfection has a price, and an appetite. Welcome back to Roots of Fear, where we dare to speak the stories that the shadows themselves try to keep silent. Tonight, we journey to a place where the very air is thick with forgotten sins, to a house that stood as a monument not to grace, but to a quiet, gnawing horror. In the humid, suffocating embrace of 1875 North Carolina, the Appalachian mists did not merely drift, they clung to the valleys with the desperate tenacity of the ghosts they harbored. It was a land of secrets, and in its heart, among the ancient, judgmental oaks and pines that whispered of older things, stood Delmare Manor. To the distant observer, it was a testament to Southern ambition, its whitewashed columns and sweeping verandas rising from the still bleeding wounds of a divided nation as a symbol of resilience. But to look upon it for too long was to feel a deep, instinctual disquiet. Something in its very aspect suggested a fundamental perversion of nature's divine order. The family within were not native to this soil. The Delmars had arrived from Charleston some 20 years prior, a whirlwind of wealth and modest mystery. Augustus Delmare, a man whose medical training was a fact he wore like a fine coat yet seldom practiced, had purchased 300 acres of the richest tobacco land. With an architect's cold precision, he chose the highest ridge for his manor, a place where the summer breezes, he claimed, might offer respite from the lowlands' crushing heat. But the locals knew the truth of that ridge. It was a place the Cherokee had avoided, a place they called Salagiaskaya Didla, the Hill of the Grinning Man. His wife, Evangeline, a beauty whose light seemed to dim with each passing season, bore him 7 children in swift, relentless succession, 4 boys and 3 girls. Each birth was not a celebration, but an event shrouded in hushed, terrified conversations among the rotating staff of midwives and servants, their pockets heavy with hush money and their souls heavy with dread. The rumors, like a poisonous vine, began with the firstborn, young Master Frederick. The wet nurse, a stout, sensible woman from Asheville known for her fortitude, fled the household in the dead of night after a single, harrowing attempt to suckle the infant. She was discovered 3 days later at her sister's home, curled and feverish, her mind shattered, muttering over and over about teeth like a grown man, and the devil's own child staring out from a babe's eyes. This grim pattern repeated with each subsequent birth. A different midwife was procured for each delivery, each bound by a contract of stifling confidentiality and paid handsomely for her silence. Yet the stories always leaked out, carried on the same terrified breath. The babies did not cry, they watched. And their mouths were wrong. By 1875, the Delmare children ranged from 6 to 16 years of age. They were an unusually pallid, silent brood, their complexions possessing an almost alabaster sheen that seemed to drink the sunlight rather than reflect it. They were never seen to smile in public, their expressions as still and placid as pond water. Their education was conducted entirely within the manor's walls by a procession of tutors, none of whom ever remained longer than a single season. The official reason was always philosophical differences, but the servants knew the real cost. The last tutor, a Mr. Albright, had been found in the library, feverishly trying to file his own teeth down to nubs. Local children, daring each other with foolish bravery, would sometimes creep to the iron gates. They brought back tales of the Delmare offspring moving in unnervingly perfect posture across the manicured lawn, engaging in silent, intricate games whose rules were known only to them. But most disturbing were the accounts of their picnics. They did not eat like other children. They were witnessed tearing into rare, nearly raw roast beef with a methodical, dispassionate precision that spoke of something other than hunger. It was a process, a ritual. Dr. Edmund Harrison, the county physician, had attended an influenza outbreak at the manor the previous winter. A man of science and stoic disposition, he thereafter maintained a rigid, discreet silence regarding anything he observed within those walls. Yet his personal diary, discovered after his apparent suicide by hanging in the spring of 1876, contained a single, chillingly cryptic entry: the Delmare aberration extends far beyond mere dentition. Today, I witnessed Victoria, the eldest girl. Her second set has begun to emerge directly behind the first. The structure is layered. God have mercy on us all if they continue to develop in this fashion. What dark providence, or scientific abomination, had taken root in this bloodline? The whispers in the general store and the churchyard took on a life of their own. Some spoke of ancient, corrupted ties to Bavarian aristocracy, of a family line known for its own bizarre physiological quirks. Others, in tones, suggested that Augustus Delmare had dabbled in unholy, galvanic experiments during his medical training in Philadelphia, that he had sought to improve upon God's design. The more superstitious, the descendants of the original settlers, would cross themselves when riding past the property's boundary, muttering about changelings and the Nunahi, forest demons said to steal human babies and replace them with their own cunning, hollow imitations. Yet through it all, the Delmars themselves moved through their isolated world with an air of unshakable, arrogant normalcy. They entertained a select few, their drawing-room conversations a masterclass in brittle politeness. They contributed generously to the new church's construction fund, their name engraved on the cornerstone. They maintained their precarious position in a new social order through a calculated mixture of financial intimidation and cold charity. It was all a performance, a grand and elaborate charade. For behind the locked doors and drawn curtains of Delmare Manor, the 7 children would sometimes look at one another. And in those moments of perfect, silent understanding, they would smile. It was a smile that revealed teeth that had never known the natural, messy progression of baby teeth and adult teeth. Theirs had emerged from the gum, perfect, gleaming, sharp, and terrifyingly, immutably adult. But the horror was only just beginning to wake up and feel its hunger. For the teeth, you see, were not the affliction. They were merely the first visible symptom. The true curse lay deeper, in the bone, in the blood, in the very purpose Augustus had engineered for his children. They were not becoming monsters. They were becoming doorways. And something was waiting on the other side, listening for the sound of the first bite. This has been the Ghastly Journal. Until our next descent into darkness, remember, some families guard their secrets more closely than others. And some secrets have teeth.